Dear first year and second year students, how are you? I hope all of you are fine by the grace of Almighty Allah. I'm also fine. In my last classes, I discussed pre-modifiers and post-modifiers. Today, I'm going to discuss the question pattern of the use of modifiers. If you want to get good marks in the use of modifiers, you have to understand the question pattern. So, I have designed my class based on understanding the question pattern of the use of modifiers. Okay, let us have a look. You see, in the question paper, if you are asked to pre-modify the noun, listen to me, if you are asked to pre-modify the noun, you have to use adjective. Okay, if you are asked to pre-modify the noun, your answer will be an adjective. You have to write a word that indicates adjective. Okay. Use a noun adjective. When you are asked to write a noun adjective as modifier, in such cases you have to use noun plus noun. Okay, one noun will be there. One noun will be there and you have to write down another appropriate noun before that. Okay, when two nouns situated together, in such cases, the first noun is considered as noun adjective. The first noun is considered as noun adjective. I repeat, if you are asked to use a noun adjective, okay, in such cases, you have to use another noun that will function as adjective or noun adjective. Pre-modify the adjective. When you are asked to pre-modify the adjective, in the question paper, if you are asked to pre-modify the adjective, you have to use adverb. You have to use what? You have to use adverb. Okay, because you know that adverb can modify adjective, adverb can modify verb, adverb can modify adverb itself. So, if you are asked to pre-modify the adjective, in such cases, you have to write an appropriate adverb according to the demand of the sentence. Okay. Come to the next one, that is force modify the noun. If you are asked to force modify the noun, you have to write past participle form of verb. Basically, it is used in passive voice. When you are asked to force modify the noun in a passive voice, in such cases you have to write past participle form of verb after noun. I repeat, if you are asked to force modify the noun, in such cases you have to write past participle form of verb. Past participle form of verb after noun. Basically, this type of structure is given in passive voice. Come to next one, that is use an article. When you are asked to write article, you have to write definite article or indefinite article according to the demand of the situation, according to the demand of the sentence. Okay, if the sentence demands A, you have to write down A. If the sentence demands N, you have to write down N. If the sentence demand the, you have to write down the. Okay, according to the demand of the sentence, you have to write definite article or indefinite article. Force modify the verb. If you are asked to force modify the verb in the question paper, you have to write adverb because you know that adverb can modify verb. Okay. So if you are asked to force modify the verb, you have to write down an appropriate adverb. Come to next one, that is use an appositive. You know that appositive means an extra information about noun. Appositive is an extra information about noun, about subject. Okay. So when you are asked to write an appositive as force modifier, in such cases you have to write noun or noun phrase. Okay. Basically, an appositive is a noun phrase. So when you are asked to use an appositive as force modifier, in such cases you have to write noun phrase. You have to write an extra information about the subject, about noun. Okay. Come to the next slide, that is use possessive pronoun. When you are asked to use possessive pronoun, okay, as free modifier. If you are asked to use possessive pronoun as free modifier, you have to write my, our, his, her, their, your, its. You have to write appropriate possessive pronoun according to the subject. According to subject, okay. If the subject is I, then possessive pronoun will be my. If the subject is we, you have to write the possessive pronoun our. If the subject is he, you have to write his. If the subject she, you have to write her. If the subject they, you have to write their. Okay, so you have to write appropriate possessive pronoun according to subject. Use an infinitive phrase. If you are asked to use an infinitive phrase, okay, in such cases, you have to write to plus verb plus other words. You know that infinitive means to plus verb. Okay, in my last class, I discussed infinitive phrase. So, you know, infinitive means to plus verb. So, when you are asked to use an infinitive phrase, in such cases, you have to write to plus verb plus other words. Okay. Use an intensifier to free modify the adjective. So, you know that intensifier is used to focus or to emphasize. Okay. So, when you are asked to use an intensifier, you have to write appropriate adverb. Intensifiers are basically adverb. So, when you are asked to use an intensifier to free modify the adjective, okay. So, you have to write adverb. Intensifier basically what? Adverb. Use an adverb to free modify the verb. Adverb. Okay. Use an adverb to free modify the verb. So, what you will have to use, it is indicated here, that is adverb. Okay. Use an adverb. You are asked to use an adverb. So, in such cases, you have to use adverb. Next one, that is use a pronoun. You know who are pronouns or what are the pronouns. You see, we basically use he, she, it for third person singular number and they for plural number. Okay. So, according to the demand of the sentence, according to the situation, you have to use appropriate pronoun. Adverb phrase. You know that adverb phrase, you see, adverb phrases basically answer the questions how, where, why, when. Okay. If you ask the question using how, where, why or when and you get the answer, this will be adverb phrase. Okay. Use present participle to free modify the verb. You know that present participle means verb plus ing. Present participle means verb plus ing. So, when you are asked to write or to use present participle to modify the verb, so in such cases, you have to write verb plus ing form. Okay. I repeat, when you are asked to use possessive pronoun, you have to use appropriate possessive pronoun. Okay. When you are asked to use an infinitive phrase, you have to write to plus verb plus other words. If you are asked to use intensifier, you have to use appropriate adverb. If you are asked to use an adverb, in such cases, you have to use adverb. If you are asked to use a pronoun, you have to use appropriate pronoun. Okay. You have to use appropriate pronoun according to the subject, according to the proper noun. According to proper noun, you have to use appropriate pronoun. Adverb phrase. Okay, adverb phrases basically answers the questions how, where, why, when. Okay, you have to write adverb phrases that will answer the questions of how, where, why, when. And if you are asked to use present participle, you have to use verb plus ing form. You have to use appropriate. appropriate verb plus ing form. Come to the next one, that is use participle to free modify the verb. Okay, if you are asked to use a participle to free modify the verb, in such cases you have to use appropriate participle. It may be verb plus ing form, or it may be verb in first participle form. So according to the demand of the sentence, according to the demand of the situation, you have to write verb plus ing form, you have to write verb in first participle form. Next one, force modify the verb by using infinitive. You know, I told you earlier that infinitive means to plus verb. Infinitive means to plus verb. So basically the sentences that expresses purpose or aim, the sentence that expresses purpose or aim, in such cases we use basically infinitive. So when you are asked to use infinitive as force modifier, when you are asked to use infinitive as force modifier, you have to write to plus verb. You have to write appropriate to plus verb. Come to next one, that is use adjective to free modify the noun. Okay, what you have to use is mentioned here, so don't worry. Use adjective. Use adjective, that means that you have to use an appropriate adjective. You have to use an appropriate adjective before noun. Okay, before the given words. Use a demonstrative to pre-modify the noun. When you are asked to use demonstrative to pre-modify the noun, you have to use this, that, this, those. You know that this is used as singular form, singular number and in present tense, and that is used as singular in past tense. This is used as plural in present tense, and those is used as plural in past tense. Okay, so when you are asked to use demonstrative to free modify the noun, in such cases you have to use this, that, this, those. Use a quantifier. You know that quantifier means information about number. You have to use proper, appropriate number like some, all, many, few, several, etc. So when you are asked to use a quantifier, you have to give information about number. When you are asked to use a quantifier, okay, so you have to give information about number like some, all, several, many, few, etc. Use determiner to free modify the noun. When you are asked to use determiner, to free modify the noun, you can use article, demonstrative, quantifier. Okay, according to the demand of the sentence, according to the demand of the sentence structure, according to the demand of the subject, according to the demand of the noun, you have to use article, you can use demonstrative, you can also use quantifier. But whether you will use article, demonstrative or quantifier, you have to use it according to the sentence structure, according to the demand of the sentence. Prepositional phrase. Prepositional phrase means preposition plus noun or pronoun. Okay, when you are asked to use prepositional phrase as force modifier, you have to use what? You have to use preposition plus noun or pronoun. Prepositional phrase means preposition plus noun or pronoun. I repeat, use participle to force modify the verb. Okay, if the question setter doesn't mention whether you will use present participle or past participle, in such cases you can use verb in ing form or past participle form, but it depends on according to the sentence of the structure. If the sentence demands verb plus ing form, you have to use verb plus ing form. If the sentence demands verb in past participle form, you have to use verb in past participle form. Force modify the verb by using infinitive. If you are asked to use infinitive, you have to use to plus verb. Okay, basically these sentences express aim or purpose. Use adjective to pre-modify the noun. When you are asked to use adjective, you have to use adjective. Use demonstrative. When you are asked to use demonstrative in a sentence, you have to use this, that, this, those. Use quantifier. If you are asked to use quantifier, you have to use number like some, all, many, few, several, etc. Use determiner. Okay, there are a number of determinants like article, demonstrative, quantifier, ঠিক আছে, number. So you can use any one of them, but you have to use them according to the demand of the sentence. Okay, if the sentence demands article, you have to use article. If the sentence demands demonstrative, you have to use demonstrative. If the sentence demands quantifier, you have to use quantifier. Prepositional phrase. Prepositional phrase means preposition plus noun or pronoun. That means that at first you have to use a preposition with noun or pronoun. Okay, come to the last slide, that is force modify the verb with adverbial. Adverbial means adverb phrase. I repeat, adverbial is synonymous with adverb phrase. Okay, adverbial equal to adverb phrase. Okay, so you know that adverb phrases basically answer the questions how, where, why, when. In the same way, adverbial also answer the questions how, where, why, or when. Okay, last one, use a relative clause. Use a relative clause to force modify the noun. You know that relative clause basically begins with a relative pronoun. A relative clause basically begins with a what? With a relative pronoun like who, what, whom, when, where. Okay, which. So these are the basically relative pronouns, and a relative clause basically begins with a relative pronoun. And you know that in a clause there is subject and verb. There is subject and verb, and that will basically begin with relative pronoun. So when you are asked to use a relative clause to force modify the noun, you have to use adjective clause or you have to use relative clause that begins with relative pronoun. And before that relative pronoun, you will find, or you have to use any noun or pronoun. Every relative clause begins with WS word, or what we can say relative pronoun, and before that you have to use noun or pronoun. Okay, I repeat, when you are asked to use force modify the verb with adverbial, when you are asked to use adverbial, in such cases you have to use adverb phrase. And you know that adverb phrase basically answers the questions how, where, why, or when. Okay, use relative clause to force modify the noun. When you are asked to use relative clause, you know that a relative clause basically begins with relative pronoun. A relative clause basically begins with relative pronoun, and you also know that in a clause basically there is subject and verb. There is subject and verb, and before relative clause you will find noun or pronoun. Okay. So today basically I have discussed the basic question pattern that are used, that are basically set in question paper. Okay, so if you try to understand what I have discussed, you will find the topic very easy. Okay, if you find any problem regarding the use of modifiers, so let me know. Try to write down your problems in the comment box. Okay, thank you.